Has anybody ever tried to rate a tornado?
And I would like to know why you can never get to the end of a rainbow.
What's the worst disaster in Iowa?
What are your top 3 movies that involve weather?
Welcome to Weathered Questions, where we answer the questions on your radar.
Welcome on into Weathered Questions, everyone, the podcast where we answer the meteorology questions on your radar. We appreciate you listening to us. All the positive feedback is great. All the feedback in general is great. And just telling your friends and family about a good place to have some fun and talk about the weather. That's what we like to do here as well. So we also encourage you to submit your questions, whatever is on your mind. We certainly want to know about it. You can email us your questions to weatheredquestions@gmail.com. That's WEATHER, the word weather, edquestions@gmail.com to join in on the conversation. Jan, how's it going today?
It's going pretty well. Things have finally quieted down after, I feel like, the, chaos of the end of December and start of January, and really, really going pretty well for us here. It's
good.
Been a little busy at work, but hey.
That's a good thing.
It is.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with being busy at work. Oh yeah, definitely. I'll be doing a little bit of traveling here before too long. I've got a couple of engagements at the very end of this month, and then a little bit in February and March too. So thankfully they're all pretty small, but they're out there. They're enough that we got to book in the calendar. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's head right into our new segment here in 2026. We're doing a cloud of the week. So last week we talked about cirrus clouds. If you want to learn more about those, head back to 3.5. But this week, Kai, what cloud? You got to pick this week's cloud.
Oh yeah. So this week's cloud is going to be the type of cloud that caused me to issue the worst forecast in the history of me working in weather. I remember
not holding any grudges
vividly
against this cloud at all, clearly.
No, you know what it actually did is it spurred me to try to learn more about it, because all the hatred I got for this forecast was so incredibly deserved. And I'm so glad that Iowa beat Michigan on the weekend this happened, because otherwise that emotion could have been taken out on me, rightfully so.
Oh, fair.
So the cloud of the week is stratus. It is stratus. Okay. Stratus, when you see stratus coming, it actually makes for pretty easy forecast, really. The temperatures don't move much. They stay pretty steady during the day, and they stay pretty steady at night. The bad part is when you don't see them coming, like me. So my setup was October, and it was Iowa versus Michigan. It was at Kinnick Stadium. It was a home game for the Hawks, and I had forecast low 70s. It was a 2:30 kickoff in early October. Record high kind of day. Everything was pointing towards really warm temps, especially by October standards. It's 2:30 kickoff, so people are going to be out tailgating, so on and so forth. So we start driving down to the stadium. I'm going to go ahead and tailgate it with some guys. About 7:30, 7:45.
No. You were out in public on a busted forecast day, Kai?
In T-shirts and shorts like everybody else, because I thought it was going to warm up, and it didn't. And so I was looking in the southwest sky, and I'm going, oh my gosh, that's a ton of clouds. Clouds in October do not bode well. Mm-mm. And what had happened was we stayed mid to upper 40s. It was a forecast error by about 25 degrees.
Oh.
And the cloud ceilings were so low that they had to cancel the flyover over Kinnick. It was so bad. And I went back and I reviewed that myself. And there was some stratus layer that came in, clear in from northern Arkansas, and it shot way up here that I just missed. And it came in that mid to late morning, and it just overspread the whole state, and the forecast just busted. It was real bad. And so stratus it's a layered cloud. It's very low in our sky. Usually it's a few thousand feet, but it's very thick. It's so thick, in fact, that the sun really doesn't get through it all that much. You get some daylight, but you get very little warming out of it. Even in the summertime, a stratusy day can keep us in the upper 60s to low 70s, even in July, and it's not raining. So, it's a very powerfully thick cloud. It's got a fair amount of moisture to it. It does not tend to produce rain. That would be a nimbus cloud if we had that. But stratus is Latin for layered. That's what it's doing. It's low level. It's layered. It's just like a blanket. And it can be several thousand feet thick. It can really be quite thick and gray, usually very uniform in the sky. There's very few breaks in it. It can happen year round. We're actually right now in one of our peak months to see stratus clouds in Iowa. So after that big forecast bust, I started going through all the different techniques. I started asking Weather Service personnel and saying, hey, how do we research this stuff to make it better? And what that spurred into, because you worked with me for several years, there's a document that I put together. For lack of better words, every time we screwed up, we documented it. And the reason why is we wanted to learn from it. And so we went through various
forecasting
steps.
Bible.
Yes.
Is what this turns into, which is what any new meteorologist, new Met that came into the weather lab would get a copy of all of this stuff that Kai put together. These soundings,
the different things that screwed up. Yeah. From cloud cover to precipitation to temperatures and so
flurries.
On and so forth. How to detect flurries better. Even, you think flurries are so non-consequential. And in reality, they don't usually cause a problem, but they're really annoying when you went with a dry forecast and the public sees flurries flying around. All of a sudden, you're wrong again. And you're like, how did I miss this?
Or back to that stratus layer, when you have a stratus layer of clouds and you're not expecting snow, but the temperature is just so that flurries spontaneously occur out of this stratus layer, and nothing, no models or anything was suggesting that this would happen. But then it's snowing all day long, and you have an inch of snow that piles up because it flurries all day.
Sometimes stratus clouds, if you're sitting there watching a movie on a chilly fall afternoon and it works for you, great. But in the meteorology world, stratus clouds can also be kind of like having to clean the toilet once a month. It's just not something you want to do. And it's about that frequency that the stratus pop up and mess you up somewhere. Now, in 2026 forecasting standards, you're not going to see a 25-degree miss like me in the late 2000s. But you might be off by 10.
Yeah.
It's possible.
And that's still a lot.
That's still a lot for a day one forecast. So thankfully, those are fewer and far between because our observation network is so much better than what it was even 10, 12 years ago. But the cloud of the week is stratus. And because it riles me up so much, we should probably move on.
Lessons learned.
Yes.
All of that to say that stratus clouds are a blanket of clouds, a layer of clouds. It just looks like one giant cloud all over the sky.
Yep.
And that's really about it.
And it may have destroyed your local meteorologist forecast. Who knows?
and please check on your local meteorologist because they may be unwell.
Make sure they're doing all right. All right. So here we go. We know that this pattern's going to flop. It's going to get darn cold again. So this was something that was brought up to you, Jan, a while back, but we're going to go ahead and discuss this a little bit. A question came in kind of about lake fog, but we're going to simplify this a little bit more and just kind of ask the very simple question: why does a river steam on a super cold day?
Yeah, and a lot of times you'll see this in the early morning hours, during the winter and stuff, but you'll see almost what seems to be steam coming off of a pond, a river, a lake. Sometimes it's, as Kai noted there, called lake fog, or depending on how big the body of water is, sea smoke is another term that some people will call it. And all of this is happening because the temperature outside is very cold, and the water temperature is not as cold. It's obviously probably not something you want to go, put your bathing suit on and jump in, but it is warm relative to the especially cold air, which is why you might see that in the early morning hours, because that's the coldest air temperature of the day. And so essentially what you're seeing is just that water evaporating, and you're watching that phase change happen right before your eyes. So you're seeing it steam, seeing it change phase, and that warmer water go up into the air. So that's the basic principle of it. It is quite literally exactly what you're seeing. Same, different temperatures profile, but same process as if you were boiling a pot of water on the stove, and you're watching that steam come up off of it as well. So yeah, that's what happens. It is very, very cool to see. And one of the pictures that I saw recently was of this happening up in Duluth, Minnesota. So you can see that over Lake Superior, and always very picturesque with like the lift bridge and stuff in it. But very cool pictures if you want to search some of those out to see just what looks like a, town or city enveloped in clouds because it's all coming off the lake.
Well, and to your point, even make a larger scale, even more simpler to understand, lake effect snow is this exact same thing.
Yep.
At a very large scale, it's cold air flowing over, and we call it relatively warm water. Now, we know the Great Lakes aren't warm, but by warm,
Correct.
we're talking about greater than 32.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's in a liquid phase. The air above it is extremely cold. It's absolutely unstable, as we call it in the physical world of meteorology, and that air has to lift upwards, and that evaporation process really takes over, and it goes straight from that liquid form to the steam and the evaporation right above it, and it's just kind of a net flux outward. And so as a result, you get at the small scale, like on a local river or pond, you see it, but at a large scale like the Great Lakes, you see people get buried in lake effect snow. So it's a very cool phenomenon to see. We probably see it the most in the first half to 2/3 of the winter, because once water bodies get iced up, it's not a thing anymore.
Yeah.
But if the water body never gets iced up, then I suppose anytime you have a really cold night, you could see that happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And obviously, the water has to be relatively warm, and the further you get into winter, the colder that water temperature is going to get. So even if you do still have open water and stuff, like example, later into spring, as ice starts breaking up and you might get some more cracks in a river or something, you're still probably less likely to see it just because that temperature differential isn't quite as great.
Yep, exactly. No question.
All right. So we're sticking on the cold winter days here, headed into our trivia question for the week. This one is: the coldest winter days tend to occur when it is either A, cloudy, B, snowing, or C, sunny. So the coldest winter days tend to occur when it is cloudy, snowing, or sunny. I'll give you a few seconds to think about that, and we'll be right back with the answer in just a sec. All right, hopefully you had a little bit of time to think about that one. Again, a reminder, today's trivia question: the coldest winter days tend to occur when it is cloudy, snowing, or sunny. The correct answer? Sunny. Did we trip you up on that one? A lot of people are going to tend to think it's either going to be those cloudy days because the sun isn't shining, or even the snowy days, which also tend to be cloudy, right? But no, it's actually the sunny days. So what's happening there? Those sunny days are, if you think back to your favorite meteorologist who is showing you giant alphabet letters moving across the map, sunny days are going to be our high pressure days usually. And high pressure days, that is where we get our cold temperatures, because there's no insulation, basically. your clouds aren't helping insulate you, and you have upward motion in the atmosphere. You've got a lot of things working against you in terms of cold air moving through. Also, behind all of your active weather, which is going to be your cloudy or snowy days, that's going to be usually behind a cold front. And so your high pressure is going to move in the middle of that cold pool of air, that dense pool of air. And again, all of those things kind of equate to sunny days not actually being very warm.
Yep, you're spot on. And I'm going to add a little more context when it comes to snow with that. Yeah. But also, the key word here is coldest, because we have had sunny skies on days this winter season, and it's been awfully nice out there. True. But when we look back at any given winter time and we reconstruct the coldest days that we had during the season, if you looked at the 3 coldest days of any winter season in the Midwest, there's a great chance they're going to be clear days. So if you have a snowstorm come in and it lays down 6 inches of snow, The mechanism for warming our air is that the sun hits the ground and the ground warms the air above us. If it's covered in snow, there's a fancy word out there called albedo, and it's the reflectivity of a surface. Fresh snow is over 90%. So while that nice warm sun, while that nice warm sun is coming in, guess what? You're not getting any benefit of it. And let's say your high temperature would be 25 degrees without snow cover, but the snow kind of kept that sun reflected away, and you only hit about 11 degrees for a high. And then all of a sudden your temperatures start dropping, and now you're down to about 10 degrees below zero the next morning, and then it's sunny again. Do you think that sun can work on it again? Probably not. So now you might not even hit zero the following day. And you'd think, right? Oh, the sun's shining. It should be warmer. The kicker here is that everything emits some type of radiation, some sort of radiation. And so when clouds move in, they're actually helping to radiate. And they can actually help to warm our processes in the atmosphere, actually, in a weird way, a roundabout way. So when we're clear like this, any energy we've gained during the night can radiate out to space. And yes, it allows for fully sunny conditions, which can chap your lips, by the way, and sunburn your face.
True.
In a cold, it can. If you're skiing and sledding and you come back in, your face feels all weird after like 2 hours, and it was sunny and cold, that might be part of it, because that can happen. But you're just not getting the benefits of that. And so as a result, your sunny days are ultimately your coldest day. So that's a great question. I love that question because, like I said, if you went back in the last 10 years and picked out our 3 coldest days, you would probably find the vast majority had sunshine in them, which is exactly counterintuitive to what you'd expect.
Yep. Normally you would think it's the exact opposite, but all right. So let's talk a little bit more about those cold winter days that maybe aren't quite as sunny, ones where we're getting snow. We've been asked this before about how why is this snowstorm going to only give us an inch of snow? Why is this snowstorm going to potentially give us a blizzard? What's the difference? What's happening that makes those different? And why would we know to predict one over the other? So there's a couple different setups here, and Kai, you're going to start to dive into a lot.
Remember the top of the program when I talked about how much I love stratus? So I have another fun story about this when I was a kid.
Okay, great.
So a gentleman by the name of Denny Frary used to be the chief meteorologist at KCRG in Cedar Rapids. We watched Denny religiously. And Denny put out a 1 to 3 inch forecast on an April night. And I woke up the next morning to exactly 2 inches of snow on the ground. And I thought, how in the world did Denny get that? Like, he got it exactly right. And this is a time where modeling was terrible. It was awful. You couldn't model anything in the 1990s. It was awful. And I thought, how did he know that? Well, the guy's been doing it a long time. And what had happened was it was a system called an Alberta Clipper that came through. Typically a very fast-moving system. These typically don't have a lot of moisture to them, and they're usually pretty predictable. I would say well over 80% of clippers are probably a 1 to 4 inch snow. And so that means if you're in the forecast desk that day and you see everything pointing towards less than an inch, or you see everything pointing towards greater than 4, you kind of have to do a double take and say, is there something else at play here? Why
what am I
is
missing?
the data doing this?
Yep.
And then sometimes you just got to lean on your gut a little bit. And, maybe the data isn't quite where it needs to be. Maybe it misanalyzed it somewhere. But Alberta clippers do tend to be, fast movers. They're very common. They happen every year. They actually happen year round, depending on what type of jet stream flow you're in. Those little waves that come in from the northwest can actually fuel some mighty severe storms in July and August. But in December, January, February, they're usually a quick shot of snow, and then they're on their way. Sometimes it may snow less than 6 hours, and it's in and it's out, and all of a sudden the sun's out the next day, and it's all done. So that's what the Alberta Clippers do.
That name comes from 2 things. The clipper part, like Kai just said, a quick little kind of skiff of snow. And so they just kind of clip by it and then move on. That Alberta part, well, that's where that normally originates from, is up in Alberta, Canada. And so that's why that name kind of comes from. It's where that pressure center originates, where that moisture and the air, the very cold air generally, with at least the winter ones of those Alberta clippers comes from. So that's why it's called an Alberta clipper.
Yeah. Now with those, almost always they'll follow that trajectory. I have found over the years, if they're intensifying as they're coming your way, maybe lean on the higher end of that range. If they're weakening or it's moving into really dry air, maybe you err on the low end of that range. Mm-hmm. But in most cases, you may have felt the same way as I did, but I had to go through a lot more winters than you did forecasting.
I hate winter forecasting.
It's hard, where you sit there and like the 4 to 7 inch range you put out there, you start counting the hours because you've got a window of time for this snow to fall. And all of a sudden, if the snow is even an hour and a half late, you might be toast.
You're eating away at the amount of time. Yep. That you
and you can you already know at that point, but the cat's out of the bag, it's run away. The public's got the forecast and you can't go back now. Mm-hmm. So we actually call this forecast process that we're talking about in a roundabout way an analog process, meaning let's look at 100 Alberta clippers and let's see what they all produced in this area. And if they were strengthening, what did they do? If they were weakening, what did they do? So that's part of the whole weather research program that takes place and how we can all kind of learn and benefit from this stuff. So clippers is one. The doozies are the ones that come out of Oklahoma and Texas. Mm-hmm. These tend to be slower, and they're appropriately called panhandle hooks is what they're called. And they start developing east of Colorado, and then they dip down to the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas, and they slowly track to the north. When I was growing up, I heard about the golden path of a low pressure system being from St. Louis to Chicago to get to a really good snow for Iowa. Now, you'd have to adjust that depending where you live. Mm-hmm. If you go from Kansas City to Des Moines to Minneapolis, well, that's going to be a really good snow for Sioux City or Sioux Falls or maybe Omaha. But those tend to be slower. Those tend to be much more moisture rich as well. So as a result, if you're going to see a foot of snow happen, it's usually out of those guys. That's going to get you that foot. And it's usually going to be about a day and a half long event as well. It's going to take a longer time. And I'm going to promise you that that's going to be a hyped up storm. Yes. It always is.
Naturally, they're going to generally lead to a higher amount of snow.
Correct.
And that by nature is going to mean it's going to be one that everybody's talking about. But the other side of that also is those are also going to be the ones where you're probably going to have wider snowfall ranges, and you're also probably going to have a forecast that you're going to need to keep up on a little bit more. There's going to be more fluctuations probably, generally, because as Kai just noted, right, that track, let's say from St. Louis to Chicago, or from Des Moines up towards Green Bay, or something, depending on what part of the world you're in, just a tiny little budge in where that track of that storm is going to lead to that heavier snow 30 miles, 50 miles different. And so as that storm is setting up, you're going to see that really heavy snow kind of fluctuate north and south and kind of wobble around a little bit. And so those are the ones that you're going to have people going like, well, they said 3 yesterday, now they're saying 6. And that's because if that storm is kind of nudging further, again, wherever you are in the world, north, south, whatever, as that storm track is moving, that big, heavier, thicker, band of snow that's really going to lead to those higher impact totals is also moving with that storm system.
Yep. And they can be, these things can be fairly chaotic. And nowadays, if we're about 2 or 3 days away, things tend to get a little bit better. But you have to realize that these larger cyclones, as we call them, these panhandle hook systems, these can have 10 times the moisture that an Alberta clipper can have. And you almost, incorporate this. I know that, we're in January now, but Daytona is right around the corner. You can almost think of this as, when's the big wreck going to happen? because you know it's going to happen at some point during the race. You just don't know if it's going to be 10, 12, 14, 16 cars all at once. And that's kind of the way the panhandle hooks work, where you know they're coming. We get them every year. It's just when is a small, and I've also seen these even in like the last 3 or 4 days before, they go from small waves to really big ones. Like they can ramp up quickly, and that's where things can happen. And I would always encourage folks, especially those that travel, make sure you're at least consuming 1 forecast a day, if not 2. I don't really think there's much point in doing it in the middle of the day because there's not a whole lot of fresh data there. But if you can nab a forecast in the morning and nab the update at night, I think that's going to help you greatly, especially if you're planning to travel, both air travel and road travel, because those panhandle hook storms can be very expansive. You can get a lot of states involved at once with those. So you just got to watch those. And this is the time of year we start to see more of those in the upper Midwest, especially.
Yeah. And last week, we talked a little bit about, listeners from all over. So do want to also throw in like a nor'easter storm. That's going to be another one that a lot of people have heard about. Also big on the travel impacts, as Kai just noted there. Those ones are going to form more so over the Atlantic, the warm Atlantic waters, and then kind of brush up along the eastern coast of the United States. Also, again, bringing very heavy snowfall and potentially flooding in the coast, things like that, again, depending on temperatures and everything else that way. But lots of different types of storm systems. Those are probably the 3 biggest ones that you're going to hear about, though, if you are a U.S. listener.
Remind me next episode, Jan. I think we should go through some of the big nor'easters that have hit over the years.
All right.
I think that's just a good type of historical conversation to have. I'm noting it right now, and I know there's a place I can find it. I just don't have it at the tip of my tongue at the moment.
That's all right.
Next episode, we'll get it.
It has been duly noted.
All
Everybody can look forward to that in 3.7. You can listen to that in 3.7.
By the way, big shout out to Jan, who might be one of the best organizers ever.
I love a spreadsheet.
In anything we've ever done together. I would go back from a cup of coffee at the TV station and come back and say, Jan, I got an idea about maybe how we can organize some of this. Oh, you mean a spreadsheet? It's already done. Here you go. Like, really? We're not even at 10 o'clock in the morning yet, and it's already done. So when she says it's been noted, pretty sure it's already typed up.
It's on there.
makes everybody's life easier. So we appreciate that. We also appreciate all of you listening in, downloading, spreading this podcast around. Jan said something last episode that was really something, that we've reached over 230 cities in 32 countries, and we appreciate you all for that. This started off as just a simple idea between 2 people who liked weather, and now you're getting a chance to listen to conversations, and we're hoping that we've been able to answer your questions. And of course, if you ever have any, please let us know. Email is the best way to get in contact with us. It's weatheredquestions@gmail.com. You can join in on that conversation. Any questions you have for us, we even had a question about the movies in one of our initial episodes. So whatever questions you might have on your mind, please let us know. Until next week, stay safe.